what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I am the writer and artist on the comic book Edge of Border Town. I'm also a film enthusiast, but that is for a different part of this channel. This is the fourth part in a series on how to make comic books. Today we are covering how to color. It's going to be a big one. Okay, welcome back to the page that we've been working on for this series for a fictional comic called Frogboxer that I'm not gonna lie to you, kind of want to do now because look at that little guy. Look at his little whole vibe. I love it. Up to this point, you've seen the thumbnails, pencils, and inks. That's where we are now. And if you haven't seen those videos, go check them out. And we are just gonna jump. I've got a new layer ready here. Now, a little tip that I think is awesome about Procreate, that's the program that I'm using. If you turn this on, make it a reference layer, it's gonna save us so much time. First process, obviously I'm gonna go through, like I have the last few videos, I'll do this panel so that you have a general idea of it, and then maybe we'll work on one of these two toward the end, but mostly this is gonna be our tester panel. So, coloring there's so much to know about colors. It's insane. Like, there are so many rules, so many things. There's a lot that I'm not gonna even slightly be able to get into because like I say, there are just way too many rules. However, some things that I will touch on, just general color theory things, some just general comic book practices, and some ideas for how you can use them and make your characters pop through those rules. This is probably going to be the least exhaustive of the ones that I do, so get yourself ready for that. Comic books are an interesting medium because you're seeing these same characters that you know and you've seen for however many panels, however many pages, however many books, all in a bunch of different scenarios, in different layouts, in different formats, in different positions, in different places, locations, different lighting. And lighting is huge when it comes to inking, but it's even more important when it comes to colors. So in this case, the scene that we have, it's a pretty much dive bar. I'm gonna make it a somewhat fancy, somewhat classy dive bar, but it's still, at the end of the day, a dive bar. So I'm gonna come here, I'm gonna use this as my kind of idea because I won't be using that color. I'll be using that to kind of set where my lighting is. My general thought is I'm gonna have the bar be sort of backlit here, right? So then our lighting will be rim lighting on Frogboxer here, rim lighting here because they're both facing against the light. This will all be shadow. Same deal here. If we think about it in reverse, rim lighting on here because the bar is going to be here-ish. Obviously you can't see it in this panel, but then lighting is going to come here and move that way. It's going to be strongest on this side here. Here we're going to have mostly just plain flat lighting for him, with a reminder that maybe some of this will be in shadow, but the lighting is going to be mostly just, plain flat lighting all over his face. In this case, this is an interesting one because Frogboxer has now turned away from the bar, so the bar would be back here. We'll light this and we'll light this, both going that direction. Now this panel's an interesting one because technically the lighting would be coming from here. I think I'll probably move it down a little bit just to make it more dramatic. I'll have it be coming from here so that the focal point is still that right there. Keeping that motion, so I'll probably have the lighting somewhere along here. I don't do this for all the pages, but it's a good way to think about it. And this will come into play later. And then if we think about for this panel last here, the lighting would be coming here, so he'll be sort of leaving in shadow there. All right, so I don't do that for most of the pages that I do. I generally just do that on the fly, but it's always a good practice to think about where that lighting is gonna be, where your scene is, making sure that you're in context when you do the lighting. However, in comics, the first thing before you get to any of the lighting, any of the additional details that you wanna get into, you have to do flat colors. So that's gonna be where you decide your color palette and make sure that you get pretty neutral versions of all the colors that you can then add in with lighting effects and shadows. So in this case, I'm gonna use the wheel here. I'm gonna get a color for Frogboxer. I want him to be cool and kind of grayish. So we're gonna go pretty neutral, green obviously, but not pure green like that. I want it to be sort of a blue-green, and then pretty neutral here. That seems good. So we're gonna go with that. And then, like I said, if you have that layer here, if you have your inks layer on reference, you can come in here, drag and drop some color. We're on a hidden layer, doing great. If you come in here, drag and drop some color, and it'll sort of fill in, depending on your threshold, it'll fill in just where the inks are, which is huge and saves you a lot of time. I don't know if I love this color. I think I'm gonna make it a little bit more gray. Your flat colors are supposed to look pretty bland, not uninteresting, but not super dynamic. Flats are exactly that. They're flat colors. They're supposed to be just a base color that you can add on to and make more of your own. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do each, I don't know if that made any sense. I kind of checked out while I was looking at the feet. That sounds weird. That's not what I meant. I'm gonna do each character on a different layer. This isn't always how I would do it, but I think it's a good way to divide it in this case. So I'm gonna get just like a general eye color here. And then for the pants, I might do something bold. I might do like a red. We'll play around with a couple of things. Red is pretty good. Okay, if we choose this right here, then we'll go to harmony here. I know this would be, it'll show you, I love that it does that. This would be the opposite color. Let's see how that looks. I mean, that is pretty good. It's got a little bit of a Hulk thing going that I'm not loving. So let's adjust it a little bit. Maybe bring it a little closer to that red. Give it like a maroonish pink. There it is. That's awesome. We're gonna come in, and see, that is the danger of using reference. Sometimes it just does that for no reason. I'm sure there's a reason. I just don't know what it is. We're gonna do that, and let's come in here, maybe bump these up just a little bit. Something about that's not working. I already don't like it. So let's come in here. We'll take that. Maybe darker was the way to go. Maybe it wasn't brighter. Darker is good. We like darker. Actually, if we do darker, that gives me the chance to have the tape be the brighter color, matching that. That's pretty fun. I like that. Okay, so there's our frog boxer. We'll go in and add way more details as we get there. Past that, I'm gonna make a new layer here, and we're gonna choose our colors for our bad guy. So we'll go for a sort of fleshy tone here. Now I already know, because I can see right there, there's that little hidden space, little separated space. That means that's not gonna fill in. So I'm just gonna save myself some time, come in here, fill that in, just because it's gonna be easier. Save that color. There we go, much better. That saves us so much time. Gonna go for that. I'll go for, let's do something a little redder for the mustache. Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's good. And maybe I'll keep the blue, steel blue almost, for those spikes. I like it. I think that's very good. This is all pretty amenable. I don't like that, I've decided. This is all pretty adjustable color-wise. Oh, took way too much of the opacity out. There we go, that's much better. Okay, that feels good. So I'm gonna come in, add another layer here, and we're gonna do some of the bar details. So, Frog Boxer, I want him to be sitting on sort of a red seat, sort of a classic, almost 50s diner kind of thing, but not quite. We'll go golden here. Actually, fully new decision. I think we're just gonna come in here, make sure we get the bar how we want it, and then we'll deal with the rest of it. So bar is wood, easy color. You want to make sure that you don't choose colors that will interact poorly with the colors around your characters. So in this case, I want to make sure that the two browns, the bar here and the mustache, are going to be two completely different colors so that we don't have to worry about it at all. I do kind of want to bring it maybe more orangey. Does that go too close? I don't think that's bad. Let's see. Not quite. This is most of what coloring is, honestly, especially in this section. It's just sort of testing out. I'm sure somebody has a much more specific process than I do, but for me, it's just kind of testing out, seeing what I think kind of works, and then playing around with it after that. Yeah, that feels good. In the back here, I do want to include like a gold kind of motif for the whole deal. So in the back here, maybe the shelves here will be gold. I want to make sure that it's pseudo-classy, pseudo-trashy. That's kind of what I'm going for here. It's kind of my goal in life, but also for this specific one. All right, and behind, let's see, does that work? Is that going to be too much light? I don't think so. I like the idea of it being kind of kind of a bright background might make it a little bit less solidly bright. Okay, that feels somewhat good. That's gonna be, a lot of this is gonna be in the additional colors where it really shines in the details, because a lot of lighting makes a lot of difference. So we'll just see what we can come up with. We'll leave this for now. Maybe they go just full gray. I try not to use full gray. Little note, don't use full black, full white. Don't use those almost ever. That is so rarely the right call. In this case, I definitely do not think it is. Maybe that's where the purple can come in. I don't know. We're playing around. We're playing around with a lot of stuff. Okay, I think that is in the direction. Maybe take it away from it a little bit. That feels almost right. The thing is, don't forget that most of this can be adjusted post. Speaking of which, now I'm not sold on these shorts. Not sure. I know I've been going for like 15 full minutes. Not entirely sold on these shorts. Let's jump real quick back into that layer. Maybe I can just ease them down a little. I think that might be good. I think that's much better. All right, that is good. That is our, essentially, oh, we gotta choose a floor color here. So let's stick with this purple kind of thing that we've got. Lighten it up a little, drop that on the floor. There we go. That is our first just flat colors, and we'll go in, I'll flat the rest of the page, and then I'll be back to talk to you about detailed colors. Drawing John, you're so perfect and cute. I hate to interrupt you. I don't know what that was. I'm really bad at transitions. I just want to take a second in the middle of this video to take a word from, well, not really a sponsor, because it's me. I mentioned earlier that I'm the writer and artist on Edge of Border Town. That is a free comic book that I do. It's on my website, johnbonart.com. It is free to read and always will be as long as I have a say on it, which should be quite a significant chunk of time because I'm the only one doing any part of it. Yeah, something bad would have to happen for that to change. We are in the middle of chapter 4 right now. Chapter 5 is on its way. I'm actually gonna go work on that right after I finish recording this video, so that's exciting. And if you have a couple extra bucks, I could really use your support. I do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/johnbonjour. That helps make these videos possible. It helps make my comic possible. It helps make my life possible. So I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate it if you have a couple extra bucks to throw my way. Otherwise, that's pretty much all I have for you. So go check those out, and we're gonna get back to drawing. Okay, we are back, and I have the full flats for this page. A couple of things of note. Here, I thought it was just interesting because our general motifs are this kind of yellow, and then that sort of dark purplish hue. I wanted to keep the separation between these two characters, so I think that that's an interesting thing to do for these two panels that don't really have necessarily a background specifically. I decided to choose yellow for Frogboxer and purple for whatever this guy's name is, because I think it's interesting to have them be clearly separated both in personality, person, species, and also just in background color. And we'll play around a little bit with those, adding some textures, adding some just depth to those, because I think it's pretty bland and boring to have just a blank colored background. Didn't do anything. I want to keep that white background here. You can see that I've gone in and added a few colors like the shirt and pants color here that I hadn't chosen yet. Obviously, some of the like eye patch stuff. I've done some pictures back here that I've sort of blurred out. Little shark man on the far right there. Don't know if that plays, doesn't really matter. It's far in the background, you won't really see it. And then let's see, anything else I wanted to touch on? Oh yeah, so this panel here it looks bad right now. it just looks bad. A lot of the texturing and a lot of the background stuff, I have a plan for what I want this to look like. So right now, they kind of blend into the background, but my plan is for that to not be true toward the end of the page. So we will get into that. Now we are gonna go, and I'll bring that layer up so you can see where we had those lighting plans. Obviously this looks terrible, but it won't eventually. So I'm gonna come in and add the shadows in this case. So normally I wouldn't do this necessarily, but because they're in the same place, they're in the same bar, I have a great trick that I think helps a lot. So I'm gonna add another layer, do a clipping mask here, which means that it can only do what's on the layer below it. It can only draw on what's on the layer below it. So in this case, I'm gonna come in and add, let's say like a really dark blue. Perfect. There's two kind of ways you can do it. One is just with the pen, you can come in and draw those shapes out. I think that's a good way to do it. Another way is if you come in with that selection tool, freehand it, And then you can come in and just select where you want shadow to be. So in this case, we'll keep like that. We'll come in, make sure that that angle happens there. You just want to fill in, thinking about the forms, thinking about what these shapes actually are. You want to fill in where the shadows would be around those shapes and draw them in. It's pretty simple, not too hard. In this case, there's going to be a little bit of light coming out there. We'll leave that open. Actually, I need a little bit more. So a little bit of rim lighting here. And obviously you can come in and edit all of this just through erasing and all that, which is good, but that should be good. I'll do just a little bit here, but since that's mostly under the bar, it should all be more or less in shadow. At least for that. So we're gonna come in, and I think that should be the majority. You can come in and, we'll turn off reference here. And then come in, drop that in. So obviously right now it looks pretty terrible. Don't worry though, because we have a plan that's gonna be pretty cool. So adding in some shapes, just like I said, where those shadows would be. Pretty easy way to kind of block in some shadow. I don't know why I said it like that. Pretty easy way to block in some shadow. Any coloring is all a lot of little decisions that you have to make. So in this case, do I want to leave these shadows? Do I want to leave them as harsh lines that then we can change the opacity? And you see that becomes sort of a shadow there, which is normally how I color. In this case, do we want to, let's say, put a little blur on there, kind of blur the edges? I don't think that I do. It's kind of a tough question. I want to blur the edges of some, but I don't know if I want to keep these harsher edges just because it's a harsher drawing style. Maybe I'll just blur it, let's say 2%. Let's go 3. 3 is good. So you can see that those edges are blurred, but they're not completely unfocused. I'll undo so that you see the difference there. So that's what I think that does look good. It adds a softer light because this isn't necessarily a super harsh light. I think that's a positive thing. So we have that, and actually I'm going to unblur it for a second and I'll just come in. If you forget to add in anything, like I had forgot that the gloves were the same part of the character, same layer, so you can come in and add those in toward the end, toward later times. So I'll come in and do that. That should be all of Frogboxer, so the eyes. So many little details that you can't forget. Now I'll come in and blur that to 3. There we go. Perfect. All right, and then we can come in and the opacity here, you can also play with what layer type it is. If you want to do darker color, that might change it. So you'll see that darker color and normal look very similar, but you can just kind of scroll through what these are and see which one plays best for your personal style. In this case, I'm gonna go normal just because it looks about the same as darker color. And then just play with what you think feels good for that first layer of shadow. I'm gonna say, because you don't want it to be super strong, I'm gonna say 14 feels good. So 14% on that one, and then you can just merge that right down so it's all the same. Then I'm gonna come in, add another clipping mask, and we're gonna do the same thing again, but for the second layer of shadow. So it's gonna be even further in on the character, even further in on those shadows, just getting that darker color that you're gonna want to add extra depth of shadow. You can, again, another little choice, you can just choose to do one layer of shadow. That is perfectly reasonable. There is nothing wrong with that. It would save you a lot of time, and sometimes I wish that that's how I did it, but it's not generally, so I'm not gonna pretend like it is here. Gotta round around the tush here. Tush is important, okay? There's nothing wrong with a little frog tush. The nice thing about coloring, there are no hard and fast rules. There's no hard and fast rules to pretty much any art, but definitely not to coloring. You can do whatever feels good, which is honestly like a little bit scary because that means you get to like make all of the choices. I think inking has a lot more rules. Penciling has rules, but it's just dependent on your style. But coloring is one of those things that if you think it's right, you're probably right. So now we're gonna come in, and actually it's easier to just hit fill layer if you have all those selected than try to remember where they are. That looks good. I'm gonna come in and make a couple of edits just to what I think should be in darker shadow that I might have forgotten. This is where you can form a little bit more of the character, add some different things that you might not have been able to necessarily do in inking or didn't want to do in inking. And again, because this is all in one enclosed space, you don't really have a lot of lighting to think about, so I'm just using this as a darker color. In other situations, you might have to choose a different darker color for each character, but I think in this case, because they're in the same bar, because it's supposed to feel like one location, it actually works out pretty well. So I'm coming in and I'm blending a couple of things that I didn't necessarily want to be the way that they are, and that looks good. I feel good about it. So that is the start of Frogboxer. I'm gonna come in and do the same process here with our bad guy. But this is gonna be a lot easier because he's mostly in shadow. So you can just come in and drop huge swaths of shadow, which makes it a lot easier. A lot of this is just rinse, repeat, do the same thing over and over. There we go. I think we brought that to 14. That feels good. Merge it down. The only reason I merge down is just because I don't want to get too many layers that just add up way too much. You can totally keep them on separate layers if you choose to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a personal, I don't know, it just bothers me to have too many layers. I guess I'm weirdly anal about those kinds of things. I don't like having too many layers. I don't like having too many things that are not clear, and I don't name my layers, although I probably should. I know people do, and I respect them for having that kind of work ethic. I just don't have it myself. I'm gonna add a little extra dark here because he's supposed to be a little bit further back in shadow. Perfect. He looks great. I love him. All right, now we can come in. I believe that's on this layer. Yeah. Do the same thing for pretty much every element in the scene. We'll come in and do the glass bottles toward the end, but everything else, just come in, make sure you've added some darker lines, some darker layers. I do wonder, I have a thought on what I might do. I might try not blurring just these elements, like just the unnatural elements. I think that could be kind of cool. We'll see. We shall see. Make sure you remember that your characters do lay shadows. So in this case, Frogboxer, he's gonna drop a shadow. Let's see, that would come on that bar there. Oh, and that was not on another layer. So let's add another layer, make it a clipping mask. There we go. Fill that layer. I think we don't want it to be, I like that. I think it's cool when it's not blurred, because that adds a difference between the natural characters and the unnatural. I think that's kind of fun. I'm gonna come in, that shadow doesn't look right. And the other thing about coloring, just with pretty much anything in comics and in art, even if it is technically officially right, if it doesn't look right, just get rid of it. It's fine. It is okay to just not have it. I'm just gonna come in here and do it by hand here because it's a little faster for some of these elements. Beautiful. All right. So this is supposed to feel kind of dark and mysterious and ominous, which is good because it does. I like it. Now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna add on this, we're gonna add a bottle color, a glass color, I guess. This is all just background work to add depth and location, geography to the scene. I think it's interesting. We'll do the same here. Add a little glass. Perfect. All right, now you can come in, bring in the opacity down so that they're sort of see-through, which is great. Come in again. We don't really have a specific color for that logo or that bottle here, so we're just gonna, I don't know, seems good. A lot of these little details in the background don't necessarily matter. They matter because of the whole image, but what they are specifically doesn't matter, so that's just a random thing. And we'll merge that down one more time. Come in, just add a liquor color, whatever color we think it is. So this one's gonna be full. We'll add some to his drink, just because that's fun. Come in here, bring the opacity down some, but not as much, so it'll be something like that. That feels good. Then I can come in, sort of edit some of these as they look kind of bad. There we go. Okay, and like I said, when you're looking at the whole page, you don't really notice that little detail, but it is important. It adds to the whole vibe. So this looks fine. It looks kind of bland, not super engaging, which is kind of fun, because that means we get to come in here and add what I think is the most interesting part. So I'm gonna clip mask that, and then we'll come in and do an airbrush. Come in, and in this case for Frog Boxer, it's gonna be kind of a golden rim fading out that way. Add where you know your light's gonna be, add where you want it to go. And then I'll do way less on this because it's not gonna be as strong. All right, again, this looks terrible, but this is where it gets fun. If you make that an add layer, all of a sudden you can see that is where you get a lot of your light effect. So we'll come in, you can also do lighter color, which will get you, if you want to keep the exact hue, add makes it a lot more vibrant and bright. That's why I always do add, especially for moments like this where it's supposed to be in a specific location. So we got that, but again, you can play around. You can do a lot of things. Hard light will be like a soft light. Soft light, obviously not as strong or bright. Hard light, a little bit stronger, a little bit brighter, still keeping that hue, but I always prefer an add. So I'll come in, and I don't know where we want it to be. Maybe, I always find 15 feels pretty good most of the time. We'll see if we want to adjust that. I might bring it up a little because he's supposed to be, let's do 20 because he's supposed to be there. So then we can just merge that down and it becomes a part of the layer, which is cool. Same deal here, clipping mask. We'll come in, give him sort of a rim light here. Pop that bad boy onto add, and then maybe he'll be 15 because he's a little farther away from the light. You can do the same thing for specific elements in your background. In this case, it's gonna be interesting because I'm gonna kind of add this. I wanna show that the light is coming from here. So we're gonna make that an add. Obviously that is way too bright. But if we make it an add and then do, let's say, 13 seems pretty good. Let's see if we play around a little bit. That's a lot, but that's not bad. It's kind of fun. I think it's too much though. 25? I like 25. So that, we've actually kind of changed it from dive bar to more fun, cool golden bar, but that's okay. I think we're gonna get a little bit of both in there. But obviously you can tell the difference between like this panel, which is pretty boring, and this panel, which is pretty exciting. And then we're gonna do something toward the end that's gonna tie it all together. So we've got our finalized detailed colors here for our characters and a little bit of detail done on our environment. Couple of things that I wanna do, just some really additional little things that are gonna, I think, bring it out just a little bit more. Coming in here, I think that I noticed that the spots, this is actually a totally different color palette. So I noticed that the spots that I had, I didn't do anything with them and I kind of wanted to. So we're gonna come in here and just come in and add an additional, I think it's just gonna add some texture, some detail, some additional fun stuff on there. Same with these. Not gonna be too specific because I'm gonna come in and bring the opacity of that down pretty significantly. Yeah, so you don't really notice, but that just changes it, adds an extra little, just splash of a different color. Not a whole ton, I might even bring it up just a little bit. Not a huge change, but it just kind of adds a little bit of texture to Frog Boxer there, which is kind of fun. Other thoughts that I had here, we'll get our, I think I'm gonna come in and just add a little bit to those really specific scars. There's a couple that I think you wanna kind of draw out and then maybe bring out a couple here. Adding an extra just sort of intentionality to the piece I think is important. One quick thing. It's way too late in the game to be changing this, but I just don't know how I feel about that gold bar. Change that. You know what, that's already better. So, things I wanna do, I wanna touch on these two panels, I wanna touch on the background of this, and then we've got a little bit of detailing to go in here. So we'll start with this panel here. I think we've got that there, all right. So I'm just gonna go in and select that panel, add another layer, do a clipping mask, you know how I do. Get that color. And I'm gonna bring it mostly white. And then I'm gonna come in here, add some, I'm not entirely sure. Let's try a burst. No, I don't think burst is the right way to go. Let's go with fat nozzle. Add some spray paint. We're adding, again, texture and depth. Bringing that focus down toward the area where we want people's eyes to go, which I think is important. And then I'm gonna do one more I'm gonna try something. It might be totally bad, so bear with me. Forgot to make it a clipping mask, and then I am gonna come in and add a burst here. Then we're gonna move it around. That's pretty cool. There we go. I like that a lot. Okay. So then I'm gonna do that, merge that down. And then the last thing I had in mind for this, I'm gonna go around and add an outline because I think I want this to pop even more than it already has. Wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't forget entirely that I was making a video, would it? Two things I've noticed. One, somehow that got mixed up. And two, there we go, that should be better. All right. Now, for this one, I'm gonna try something else actually because I think I want it to be, oh yeah, that's much better. So that's the thought that I had for that panel. I wanted it to be brighter, flashier. I think that is very good and I like it so much. I might add an effect there at some point, but I haven't decided yet. Otherwise, these two I'm gonna do significantly less on. I'm gonna choose just a good texture. What do we like? Maybe a charcoal seems good. Just a little something to make Frogboxer pop out a little and make the panel more interesting. And we'll do a similar thing for this one. All right, so there we have our page. It's a little bit muddy. There's some things that I'm gonna do to kind of work on that. But before we do that, don't forget we have these action lines that I don't wanna forget about. Just a little something to add some speed to it. Those two look good. Now we have possibly my favorite part of the process. I can get rid of that. Possibly my favorite part of the process because it's the thing that I think ties it all together in a way that nothing else can, and I did not figure it out until far too late. So we're gonna try a couple of different things. One, fill in a layer just under your ink layer here, and then scroll through and see if any of these feel good. That actually has something to it. So maybe lighten. No, I don't think it works. Screen could be interesting. This is what it normally looks like. And then the vivid light, let's see, if we bring it in, even just 6%, that already kind of ties it all together, adds a specific mood to the piece. And you can tell if I got rid of it, it's such a slight change, but it makes all the difference. I don't know that it's vivid light though, we'll see. I don't know what any of these do, by the way. It's just whatever I feel like looks right. So I'm gonna do color dodge. I'm actually kind of digging. Adds a sort of bluish hue to it, brings it all together. So I'm gonna leave that. Then I'm gonna come in. I will give it a shot with a yellow. We'll see what happens. It's worth a shot, you never know. I don't like the way that's playing off of Frogboxer though. Unless we went all the way, which I actually kind of don't mind that retro-y kind of feel, but I don't think that's really what we're looking for. All in these tiny little adjustments. So in this case, we obviously don't want that much. But let's bounce it up ever so slightly. Maybe 10%. It flattens everything in a positive way. I think it brings everything, makes it feel a little bit more natural. All right, so that's an option. That's an option. I think I'm liking this warmer direction, so I think we're gonna stick in that. Let's see if we can change what that is, and maybe that'll help. What happens if we make it more red? See, that plays with the purple pretty hard. You're witnessing firsthand the just general trial and error process that is the art of John Bonjour. Now is where I start to wonder, should I just make it all orange? Bear with me, friends. This panel's not working. Yep, that is absolutely the one that isn't tracking. You know what? I think if we're gonna lean into it both, we should lean into all of it. Okay. So we're gonna change it up a little. Closing that off for now. I'm gonna pull this wall color and drop it on this panel. Then don't know why that would, oh, well, because I'm on the wrong layer. This we're gonna shake up as well. Let's do that. I don't know why I'm pulling from that. Let's do the yellow that we had. See what happens. It's simple. It feels good. Contrasts with everything. Let's see if we maybe bring it a little brighter. And what I like about that is it completely separates it from the rest of the page. So I might actually just leave that almost as is. It's a shame it took this long to figure out, but that's okay. It'll all be worth it in the end. All right, I actually really like that. The nice thing about this is it's not necessarily an actual comic, so I get to just kind of play around. But I do like what that's bringing to the table. Okay, so if we see it in full, that orange, let's make that orange a little bit redder and see what that does. I don't know, I think we want to leave it as was. You can tell it's making a difference, although not huge, just something to bring it all together. Add that kind of warm depth we were looking for. I think that is good. So there we go. And there you have it, a fully colored comic book page. I hope that you learned a lot. As I say at the end of all of these videos, that is not exhaustive. I have not said all there is to say on coloring comics. Not even close. So yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I will try to make a video at the end of these addressing those questions if you have them. Otherwise, you can look forward to the how to letter video in a couple of weeks, and go check out some other videos on this channel because I think there's some good stuff. Hope you guys are doing well. Let me know what comic you're working on in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on comic books, art, the creation of comic books and art, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like me to talk about next, or if you have any questions. Or do none of those things because I am not your dad.